This is America 20 years after the zombie outbreak. The great cities of the past are rotting like corpses. It's not exactly a relic of human civilization, because we're not extinct yet. A young boy who looked no older than 10, wearing inappropriate adult shoes, under the hot sun, made it to an exclusion zone surrounded by high walls. This is the Boston Quarantine military quarantine. The population is around 10,000. Outside survivors need to be tested before they can get in. The little boy was tied to a wheelchair. A guard put a detector on the back of the boy's neck. Beep. In front of the big sister smiled. Tell him everything is fine. Half an hour later, the little boy's body turned up at an open burning site in the quarantine zone. He was put in a hood and bound by hands and feet. A man in his 50s, numb, hold up a small body gently into the raging fire. That's the Boston quarantine policy. All the survivors from the outside world, we need to be tested for zombie fungus first. If it is positive, it must be poison first, then burn the bodies to stop the spread of cordyceps. 20 years ago, cordyceps spread around the world from snack foods. It destroyed human civilization almost overnight. The fungus can penetrate the human brain in a short period of time, control people's minds, turning it into an aggressive monster. Infected people have only one instinct: to bite. This is how germs spread the disease through blood by biting healthy humans. The infected person's body tissue is gradually replaced by the fungus. Some will die in a month or two and become mushrooms. Some become undead monsters for decades. Human society has no time to defend itself. It's a natural fungus. Science has no answers and no antibodies, and fearful humans do scarier things. At that time, the Federal Disaster Relief Agency in the United States is trying to contain the spread of the virus in order to clear the infected area of all civilians. Infected or not, countless innocent people have been killed by their fellow citizens. Even so, the spread was not contained. Then the government fell and order collapsed. Civilization and morality seemed to be eaten away. The hero is this man walking dead. His name is Joel. 20 years ago, to see his daughter in person, killed by a soldier who opened fire on civilians. He is now old and frail, living in the Boston quarantine. It's a place where people come and go without losing their threat, but life is only a perpetual haze. The old, the sick, and the sick are all carrying merchandise, and the most expensive products are psychotropic drugs and spirits. It's what people use to numb their pain nerves. There are guards on the roofs of buildings here 24 hours a day. They are the regime in the quarantine zone. FEMA is about military supremacy. They execute criminals in public, simply leaving or entering quarantine without permission. He was about to be hanged. This is a way to kill the police. Of course, violent rule invites resistance. A civic group called Fire Silver. Armed attacks are often carried out, trying to overthrow the Federal Disaster Relief Agency, but they are not strong enough. The two sides have been at war for nearly 20 years, a never-ending war, terrorizing the people inside the quarantine zone. Hell is better than hell. This is the end of America, the quarantine's means of communication with the outside world. All that's left is the radio. Every day there were long lines outside the radio telegraph room. Those are the fretful people, waiting for a kiss I may never see again. Friend connection. Old Joe just jumped the line and nobody's gonna mess with him. He bribed the radio operator with a small packet of cigarettes. In return for bad news, Old Joe's brother is 3,000 kilometers away. I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. Life and death are uncertain. Old Joe grew more anxious every day. He could not wait any longer, so he decided to use his life savings to buy a car and a battery, smuggled across America in search of his brother. But haste breeds confusion. This day partner Tess faces hurt home, gave Old Joe some bad news. Not only did he fail to buy batteries, even both were cheated out of their money by black marketeers. Bad Old Joe. Then he decided to take revenge on the black marketeers. When they found the guy with the gun, he was dead. Turns out he was scamming around with a dead battery. Lie to this and lie to that. Finally paid the price for his greed. He's messing with the fireflies in the quarantine zone. A gun battle broke out when a deal fell apart. Black market kills, all fireflies kill too. Even their leader was shot. The leader's name was Ma Ling. Relieved to see Old Joe and Tess. He and Old Joe go way back, a long time ago. He's the one who convinced Old Joe's brother to join Campfire. Not that I could convince Old Joe and Tess, but he knew they could do a lot. Many smuggling operations over the years. Repeated access to quarantine, come back safely, endure severe pain. Fire Silver made a deal with Old Joe. He asked Old Joe and Tess to bring a 14-year-old girl, sneak out of town, to meet one of his men at a location outside the city. Give the girl to one of his men. Fire Silver will give them a wagon full of gas. It was the first time the two had smuggled a human. The leader didn't say why the girl was so important, but in desperation, they accepted the deal. The three set out at night. Every night, the Federal Disaster Relief Agency is doing mandatory evacuations. Searchlights and gunmen on patrol. The three made their way through the underground passageway outside the city. Helicopters also patrol around the city, and then they have a lot of stealth experience. I still hit a guard. They almost thought they were going to die. Luckily, Old Joe knew the guard. He buys psychotropic drugs privately with Old Joe. The guards wouldn't have reported them hanging if they had that connection, but he still wanted to beat up Old Joe and Tess. According to military regulations, he had to test 3 people for germs first.
And everything off of this run, and half off on all of the pills.
Half off? All off. Risk my job for half off. Out of your fucking mind.
Ellie, what the
Fucking bitch!
The guard was furious. He pointed the gun at the girl's eyes and shot a fierce light. Old Joe stood in front of the girl and begged him to cut him some slack. but the guards have gone rogue. The scene instantly took old Joe back 20 years. It was the worst heartbreak of his life. The same light, the same confrontation. He was holding his own daughter in his arms. You're surviving a zombie hunt. We got a soldier with a gun. He thought it was a lifesaver. But they raised their guns at them. We're not sick. Sir, we're not sick. That day the younger brother arrived in time to kill the soldier. Old Joe saved his life, but the daughter in her arms was shot dead. Time returns to the present moment. Old Joe's pent-up anger of 20 years flared up. Countless punches smashed into the guard's face till he's all bloody and dead. The girl was frightened into promotion, and at this time, Tess found a positive on the detector on the floor.
Oh, no, I'm not sick.
Joe!
I'm not sick.
Joe!
I'm not sick. Look. This is 3 weeks old. Nobody lasts more than a day. Just look at the old to you. You're gonna kill me. When did it happen? It doesn't matter. You have to trust me. They're gonna catch us if we don't run.
Through the heavy rain came the voices of other guards. They must leave at once. Just like that, they slipped through a hole in the fence. Out of the hell of the sector, lightning and thunder reflected the corpses of the city. Thunderstorms mingled with the roar of zombies. They ran to the next hell,